Good afternoon, Oceanology International. It's my pleasure to speak about autonomous environmental intelligence within a long-term marine observatory. My name's Tim Smythe. So I'd just like to frame the challenge for us all just a moment. First of all, that long-term observatories require stability, traceability, and repeatability, whereas autonomous technologies represent an at-pace disruption and opportunity in that space. So I'm going to unpack that frame question there. So long-term observatories require stability, traceability, and repeatability, and hopefully by the end of this presentation you'll be able to tell me back exactly what we need for long-term observatories. So what do I mean by stability? I mean that we need stability in sensors, we need stability in methodology, and we need stability in terms of the platforms that we use to deploy them. What do I mean about traceability? Well, I mean that we need standard calibrations and we need laboratory certifications. And for repeatability, we need fixed points generally, and that they are regularly sampled. So I'd just like to introduce something to you that probably everybody in Plymouth knows all about, and possibly most people in marine science in the United Kingdom know about, and this is the Western Channel Observatory. This is one of the best sample pieces of marine real estate in the world. We like to say that, because we would, wouldn't we? And it's just off the coast of Plymouth. We've got two long-term sampling stations, one called L4, which is 4 nautical miles due south of Rainhead, so it's about 7 miles from Plymouth. And then we've got a very long-term time series, and I mean by that centennial time series at station E1, which is 120 years old and some 20 nautical miles offshore. To give you an idea of depth, L4 is in 50 metres deep water and E1 is in 80 metres deep water, and they seasonally stratify. So that means between April and October, the top layer of the water is very different in characteristics and temperature to the lower half of the water column. These are the sorts of things that so if I had a pointer that worked, I'd be able to show you here, but we have here our research vessel Plymouth Quest right in the middle, showing you some of the sampling techniques that we use. So we use Niskin bottles in a rosette sampler and a CTD to be able to take water samples with depth. We've got nets to look at zooplankton, which we trawl from behind the Plymouth Quest. We've got a couple of moorings. So we've got one at station L4, which is a mobilist buoy. And then we've got another one at station E1, which again is a mobilist buoy, much older in design. And then the sorts of measurements that we're taking, we've got temperature, salinity, chlorophyll turbidity, light, nutrients, chemistry, and oxygen. So we're really measuring a really good subset of what's going on in the water, as well as the phytoplankton and the zooplankton. We're also interested in the benthos, so we've used benthic samplers to look at the macrofauna and epifauna. So this is just an example. Sorry that the resolution isn't great unless you've got your nose on the screen. This is just to show you that we've got really good time series going back to the start of the century before last. So back to 1903, we've got a temperature and salinity time series that then we can start to give evidence for things like changes in the water column in terms of the incidence of marine heat waves, for example. So since 2023, we've had an almost continuous marine heat wave off the coast of Plymouth. So that's 120 years. We give that a gold star for longevity and how good it is. We've also been measuring the chemistry for about the best part of 100 years off Plymouth. So that's looking at the nitrate and the phosphate concentration of the water. And then this very busy block, we've got about 40 years of weekly sampled biology off the coast of Plymouth, where we've now been able to look at summer declines in some of the larger phytoplankton, so they're declining much more towards smaller phytoplankton. And it's only by being able to regularly sample every week for 40 years that we're able to see these changes in the biology. So hopefully you'll be able to say back to me, long-term observatories require... Crowd participation isn't quite what it was, I think. Thank you very much, Julie. So requires stability, traceability, and repeatability. So why is that? Well, we need long-term scientific evidence for ecosystem resilience and also risk. Risk to the natural environment and also risk to us from the natural environment. So, autonomous technologies represent an at-pace disruption and opportunity. So a disruption in terms of that the sensors aren't quite the same as what we have always been using. The methodologies, therefore, are going to have to change. The platforms, you only need to look around this whole massive complex that the platforms are utterly different from even 5 years ago, let alone 120 years ago. Calibrations obviously will change with different sensors. Laboratory certifications, sometimes we really struggle to get our head around what a certified reference material is for half of these things. And then also, so I put those things in red in terms of the things that are really changed. In terms of the things which may have changed, so yes, you kind of can do with autonomy fixed point observations, and they can be regularly sampled. And this really brings us to the opportunities in terms of the data volume. So data volumes have really ramped up in the last 5 to 10 years. We're now talking in terms of giga to terabytes rather than the sort of kilo to megabytes. The temporal resolution is obviously stepped up as well. We can start to measure things now on sub-second time frames. Spatial resolution is better, and also the timeliness of data. Real-time data is really great to be able to convey stories and narratives. So let's navigate this disruption, shall we? So this is some of the things that we're doing at L4. So this is our station, which is 4 nautical miles due south of Rainhead, 7 miles off Plymouth, within the National Centre for Marine Autonomy. And the traditional way of sampling for phytoplankton and zooplankton is that we either trawl nets for a given period of time, or we take samples with our Niskin sampler. But what we are now starting to do is taking samples from a mooring that we can then have very fast flow through of data. We can start to look at phytoplankton on a sub-hourly basis rather than once a week. So these are the sorts of things that we're doing. Those data are then telemetered back to the laboratory, and then we're starting to build up a library of taxonomy such that we can automatically identify species of phytoplankton and zooplankton. And the Western Channel Observatory gives us this really brilliant platform for looking at this transition to autonomy, because going right back to 1988 at the beginning with just doing net hauls, we've now made a real change. We're looking at things now like eDNA and what that can bring to our understanding of the marine environment. FlowCam, we've been operating one of those for about the best part of 15 years. And then in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, we've been using these new tools in real time to be able to give us an idea about how things are changing. So I've put down here, addition of new automated technology to complement at the moment existing time series while providing high temporal resolution, broad size spectrum data with its increased data volumes and improved timeliness. And how can we exploit the opportunity? Well, I think that increased volumes of timely data at high temporal resolution can do two things. They can vastly improve the environmental intelligence, or in other words, situational awareness. If we're going to look at dual use, I think let's use dual use of language. We in science like to think about environment and intelligence, but in the military you like to think about situational awareness, and it also enables real-time decision making. So that's via modelling and remote sensing. So we've got a really good set of skills in Plymouth and at PML for looking at satellite remote sensing. For example, we've got one of the largest marine satellite remote sensing groups in the world based at PML. We've also got an excellent team, one of the best looking at ecosystem modelling as well. So we've got 2 teams looking at that. We've got buoys sending data back in real time. We've got our traditional sampling methods like boats, and then we're bringing gliders into that frame as well. And this is an excellent project that was run by one of my colleagues, Matthew Palmer. He's actually here at the moment. He's not here at the moment, but he is here. In this project, what we did was that we brought all the different tools together of satellite remote sensing, real-time modelling. We were working in collaboration with the UK Met Office on this one. And then what we were able to do, we had some gliders that were deployed in situ, and we were able to let the model decide where the gliders were going to sample. So no longer just dependent upon pilots sitting in a remote operating theatre. What we were able to do was get the model to tell the gliders where to go. So that was a real step change for us. So it's bringing all these different tools together to give us the very different view of what changes we're seeing in the environment. So thank you very much indeed for your time. And I think, have I got time for questions? Possibly. No answer. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.